Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zach, and in this video we're doing the ECOMI VEVE video as per usual. Currently the price 0.0045 on a low of 3.862 and a high of 4.617. Quite a range today, and honestly we're almost at the 5. That hasn't happened in quite a while. If we have a look at this real quick, when was the last time we hit the 5s? It was, wow, it was a long time ago. It was a really long time ago. It was like, it hasn't, yeah, we haven't literally seen the 5 for months. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. That's awesome to see. That being said, this video isn't about price moving too much. I want to have a look at Tom BILYEU and Anthony POMPLIANO because they spoke about the future of money on their podcast literally yesterday. Now, part of this was them talking about NFTs and, well, maybe, just maybe, a certain company that builds NFTs and collectibles was spoken about in a fair amount of depth on this podcast. Let's take a listen to what they had to say.
Yeah, in the NFT market, you see that in a big way. Do you mess around with NFTs at all?
I was very, very early to NFTs, and it's not very popular in some sectors of this industry, specifically with Bitcoin maximalists, etc. And it's why I make such a serious delineation between monetary maximalism and then like the technology competition. But in May of 2020 or so, I started to hear about it, look at it. It was interesting to me, etc. And the more that I dug into it, I realized I was like, this is the same argument as to Bitcoin versus gold, right? The digital version of something is always bigger than the analog version, right?
The digital version is always bigger than the analog version. So I just want to put that statement out there. The digital version is bigger than the analog version. But before we continue, I want to make it clear that they do in fact talk about ECOMI's VEVE specifically in this podcast. It just takes a couple of minutes, but I want to make that very clear that this isn't me just putting it in the title. They do speak on it.
To the physical version.
Is that just your gut says, or is there...
Name one asset that you can think of where the physical version is not bigger than the digital version.
I can't. And you have just put words to something that I feel, but have never had words. That feels so true to me. That's why I'm so hyped about Bitcoin and Ethereum and NFTs is like, dude, my brain switched over to digital so fast on artwork, I can't tell you. So there was actually, I found myself, somebody wanted to send me something and they were like, oh, I want to send you, I forget what it was, a painting or something like that. And I, in my heart was like, oh man, if it was an NFT, I would fucking love it. But I'm like, the physical thing, thank you. That's so sweet. It's, oh my God, so kind. But go ahead and keep it. It's weird how fast that happened.
The thing.
Now think about why that is. Now, Tom might have some preferences that I'm not aware of, but when we think about the practicality of it, the reality is that with a physical thing, you got to know where to put it. With a digital thing, you got to have a phone. Job done. Job done.
If you just go down the line, so the easy examples are shopping, all that type of stuff. Taxis, Uber. The reason why most investors missed Uber as an investment opportunity is they compared Uber to the total addressable market of the taxi industry. Well, that was actually the wrong analysis.
That's really interesting.
Because the digital version of taxis ended up actually not owning any cars. And it was a market expanding technology because it didn't just eat taxis. It didn't just eat black cars. There are millions of people in the United States who are young, who don't own a car, and they Uber everywhere. How many people in Manhattan own a car? Well, most of the young people, they just Uber everywhere or they use public transportation, right? And so what ends up happening is the opportunity or the addressable market expanded drastically with a digital version of the analog. If you look at gold's market cap's about 10 trillion. Bitcoin today is 1 trillion. I fully believe that Bitcoin is not only going to drastically eclipse gold's market cap, but it'll be a market expanding technology. If you ask me right now how to go buy gold, I couldn't tell you.
Agreed.
I'd have to call a broker or go on a website or, I'd have to figure it out. I don't know how to do that. Myself and most digital natives know exactly how to buy Bitcoin. And so you look at that, now bring it to art. The art market, depending on how you count or whatever, $1 trillion or less, right? The digital art market, you just said it, OpenSea did $3 billion in transaction volume in a single month.
It's crazy.
And so why is Bitcoin better as a global store of value than gold? Why is the digital version better than the analog? Well, one, There is a digital component to it, meaning that anyone in the world with an internet connection can sign in and immediately start to transact in it. So there's an accessibility advantage. 2 is there's fractionalization. I don't have to buy a full Bitcoin at $45,000, $50,000. I can buy a piece of a Bitcoin. 3 is that
now that in itself is very consumer focused and very sort of consumer focused, I guess is sort of the right way of putting it. Essentially giving the option, right? Oftentimes people think, oh, I can't buy a Bitcoin because it's too much now. And the reality is, yes, you can. It's just don't buy one Bitcoin because, yeah, of course, that's going to cost you thousands. But if you buy a small amount, then there you go. That's not a financial advice, to be very clear, obviously, but it's just sort of to show that, you know, there's a lot more options, a lot more opportunities that people can get involved with when it's digital versus physical. So
I can carry it around really simply on my phone, right? Or on my laptop rather than lugging around physical goals. There's a portability advantage to it. And then you start to look at it from a storage cost, etc. Right? There's a whole bunch of advantages, digital version versus the physical version. What happens with the digital art? It's the same thing. More accessible, more divisible, more portable, all this type of stuff. And so if we're going to go and move our lives into this like metaverse digital world, whatever, you know, is the new way to describe it, why would we leave the assets we care about in the analog world? No, we're going to bring them into the digital world too.
All right, I'm going to try to touch on something ephemeral to just drive this point home. Have you ever looked at a VEVE Vault?
VEVE Vault? No,
Yeah,
what is that?
Okay, this is so
I was
crazy.
actually surprised when Anthony said that he didn't know. I was like, oh, okay. Because in my head, most people who have looked through this stuff, I mean, Anthony is more crypto than NFT as far as I'm concerned, as far as like what he, you know, he looks everything into, etc. Of course, he is still very, very probably knowledgeable in NFTs, etc. But I was surprised that he didn't know VEVE. And someone actually asked me in the last video I made about Gary Vee, asking whether or not Gary Vee knows about VEVE. He has very briefly spoken about it. I think he's confirmed that he's not invested in it, but he's very briefly spoken about it on Twitter, basically acknowledging it, right? And I think Gary is probably in a place with VEVE where he's probably thinking, okay, well, this looks really exciting. It's just got many years to build. So as to not sort of hype it up too much, but also sort of give it space to breathe and to grow, right? So that's why I don't think we see a lot of Gary talking about it, because it's too early on still.
So VEVE is a collectibles company that's partnered with like DC, Marvel to do, but their NFTs look like actual collectibles. So it looks like a toy, it looks like a statue, like they're going out of their way to sort of literally just digitize the collectibles industry. But their brilliant move, and I'm still dazzled by this, is that they gave their users the ability to create these. They've made it right now. I'm sure future iterations won't, but it looks like a vault. So you're going through a vault door and then you're on the inside, but it's just a virtual.
And when he says future iterations, he's basically talking about the VEVE-verse, right? About what we can expect to see, hopefully, in many years from now. I mean, I'm not sure how many years, but at some point, of course, we'll be able to actually enjoy the VEVE-verse in a way that isn't just the current house, basically, that you see, that is obviously the vault that Tom is talking about. And that's going to be game-changing, especially for gamers. I stand by that. As someone who makes a living every day in gaming, through understanding communities in gaming, the culture of gaming, etc., gamers are going to be at the forefront of this. At the moment, actually, gamers have been slower than I expected to pick up on this, I got to be honest. But I also know that people in the esports scene, which is competitive gaming essentially, I know that esports organizations are having conversations about this, that they're talking about it. And I do wonder who the first esports org will be to partner with VEVE, just saying.
Space for you to.
I have spoken with one esports org. I won't say who, but I've spoken with one esports org, tier 1 organization, one of the biggest orgs in the world for esports. Spoken with them briefly, and they are interested in VEVE. I just won't say which one because private, you know.
Display all the things you've collected. The level of creativity that people show in placing their items is insane. So I'll give you one example. The way that they have programmed this space. So one of the collectibles you can buy is the DeLorean from Back to the Future. And one guy put it upside down and on the roof. So it's actually outside the vault, but it plays an animation in a loop of the flux capacitor turning on, which has all this electricity, right? If you remember the movie, all the electricity sparks and then it disappears. So it does that animation. So as you walk through this guy's vault every 30 seconds, whatever, all this electricity just runs around the ceiling because he's placed his collectible. And I was like, oh my God, if I have the physical thing, you have to come into my house to see the physical collectible. B, it's not going to have electricity sparking everywhere.
Yeah.
It's going to zap some kid walking by. So not only now am I only bridled by my imagination, but anyone, anywhere can come and see this. And so now, as a social creature that wants to connect with my community, and I'm given these virtual tools, I don't need to be wealthy, right? You no longer need a big crazy house to display all of this art. You can create this virtual thing, put all your stuff in a way that only you have done. It takes time, right? You talk about money as this equation to time. So we know we value time. So when I see somebody who's spent their time creating something like this.
Can we also just mention that, like, and this is like an accessibility thing, but with VEVE art specifically, you know, you'd have to move, like, for one, you'd have to have a whole room in your house, basically, or whatever, to put your collectible in, right? And then, like, you know, you couldn't have a DeLorean size, and if you do, imagine trying to get a DeLorean type of collectible thing in a room. That is so much effort. That's so difficult. You just press a few buttons or literally tap your screen a few times and it's done in VEVE. It's ridiculous.
I'm just like, oh my God, like this is so much cooler than what collectibles have ever been ever before in history. And so I start thinking about, all right, now you're going to have companies that spring up that are making virtual galleries where the gallery itself is like this crazy physics defying piece of art. You're not just walking through a mimicry of a traditional gallery. You're on the fucking moon. You're in outer space. You're inside the body, whatever you want. Like it is the creativity that the digital realm unleashes because you no longer have to obey the laws of physics. It's just, oh my God.
I think there's an element of like, you don't have to obey the laws of physics. You also don't have to ask permission of anybody.
Preach.
Right. So, you know, if you go and you look at an art gallery in Manhattan, for example, how many people really got an opportunity to design the art gallery? Well, they're usually people who have some sort of pedigree. They got trained somewhere, right? There's like all these like hurdles to get in. And so it ends up being a lot of the same people who all know each other and they're the ones who do it. On the internet, imagine if you held a global competition for whoever could create the best art gallery, right? And there was like a prize for it. You'd get some really, really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Because there was no barriers to become the person who could do that.
Democratizing it.
That's all this is it's now just saying, but you don't have to come do it in Manhattan. Like just do it on the internet. And I think that
and democratization of this stuff is incredibly important. Democratization of information is why you're able to watch this video. It's why I didn't have to apply to some TV network for my show about VEVE to be aired on, you know, X type of channel, right? No, I record right now. I show you what I'm hearing. I give you my own opinions, and you can listen to it if you want to. And if you don't want to listen to it, you got other people to listen to on YouTube that have similar content, right? That democratization of the internet isn't just that. It's being able to talk on Twitter. It's about being able to read anything you want to on Twitter, on Reddit, being able to search anything up on Google because there's no real barriers to entry. Of course, you need SEO and marketing understanding, but that's more of a that's more making sure that the system works more than gatekeeping anything.
Best analogy I have for this is think of Twitter. If I said to you, Tom, you know what you're going to do every day? You're going to go hang out in this virtual reality square and you're going to talk to random strangers. You'd be like, dude, that sounds like cool to like test one time. But like,
I actually didn't watch this part of it, but what did I just say? Like I before I made this video, before I started recording, I watched the first half. I did not know that Anthony was going to say that.
I got things to do. But what do? You go through the portal, which is your computer or your phone, and you go and you hang out in a digital square and you talk to strangers.
And Twitter doesn't stop you from doing that. I mean, obviously, if you're putting out stuff that is harmful or whatever, Twitter will take it down. We're not going to get into all of that right now. But Twitter doesn't, if you're writing general jokes, right? If you want to be a comedian, this is getting a bit further away from NFT, but it's still important because the principle is parallel to NFTs, right? Which is it's the democratization of actions being taken, right? On Twitter, you can make a joke, you can build your own, audience as a comedian, as anyone who's got some sort of value to provide to many people, and Twitter just facilitates the entire thing for free. Okay, yes, there's advertisers.
like that is in some weird way a version of virtual reality, right? I tweeted recently, I said, we live in virtual reality already.
Of course, yeah.
It doesn't look like the thing that you put, the Oculus headset on and you walk around, you can touch and feel things. And like that's like level, 2, 3, 4, 5 of virtual reality. But Twitter created virtual reality for people, and you can go there and hey, every day we all come here and meet up again. Right. And you keep going. And then what am I basically doing? I'm basically walking around the square and I'm saying, okay, Tom's talking about this person's talking about this person's talking about this. And I have a choice. Do I want to butt into the conversation? Do I want to reply? Do I want to quote tweet? Do I want to say, hey, Tom just said whatever, and I go in and tell my friends? That's a retweet button. Like you start to.
Do you want to mute them? Do you want to block them? Do you want to report them? Is there anything that you can
think through this? And it's like, yeah, this is all going to happen. How quickly does it happen? Up for debate. What technologies is it built on? Up for debate.
Sure.
How should an investor invest? Up for debate. How should you, as a market participant who's not an investor but wants to be a user, how should you use this stuff? Up for debate. But I think that one of the trends that every great investor has figured out, or one of the activities, is just find that kind of direction that the world is moving, as be an observer, understand the world's moving this way.
Absolutely.
And then go and say, okay, well, what are people using?
To your point about,
and that right there is really difficult for most people to really sort of jump into, because this is all so new, right? So that's why you still see debates about, even as much as going into VB's debates, as far as like, the fact that technically currently, you can't really, the OMI fiat stuff is still not a thing with the MTL that hasn't been put in yet, et cetera, right? The MTL license, whatever. But it's all going to happen. It's just a case of how and when. Now, of course, when is what trips most people up. And it's why most people get really confused and don't know what's really going on. But to me, I don't really, I'm literally, when I'm looking at this stuff, I'm just like, well, it's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen with VB, it'll happen with someone else. But VB has the best shot at it right now. So that's what, that's the only thing that you can even base all this on, is what does the evidence show right now? What do you think will happen? And how can you position yourself so that if things don't go the way you want them to go, what else can be done about it? What else will be done? Well, the reality is that NFTs aren't going anywhere. The passion and the desire and the demand for this isn't going anywhere. The only thing that's going to change is how it happens.
Observing it, to not judge it. So one of the things the NFT market has taught me is that, in fact, I wrote my rules. They were tongue-in-cheek when I wrote them, but I think I should publish them, is that everything you think is cool is going to go to zero, and everything that you think is dumb is going to moon. And I've just seen that play out over and over and over again. It's really hard to predict what other people are going to think is cool, because it's really a moment is created. Energy is orchestrated somehow through this. It's not an invisible hand, because there are some people that are really good at it, but they can get the energy moving towards a project for whatever reason. Like, I don't know if you paid attention to what happened with Loot.
So now obviously we're looking at the different NFT markets that are out there, and sort of, which ones are going to do well. I think that they were going closer to the Crypto Kitties, Crypto Punks, Bored Ape Yacht Clubs, etc., which is a very different, in my opinion, project and product in overall to VV. A lot of people ask me when they see that, or when they hear that I'm in it, because most people who know me online know me from gaming. When they see that I'm into NFTs, they're like, oh, wait, did you buy one of those Crypto Kitties for $10,000 or $50,000? And I'm like, no, that's not what I do. Now, that's not to say that that shouldn't be done. NFT, I know there's a lot of clubs for that sort of thing, and anyone who enjoys that, go for it. But personally, what I'm really interested in is seeing the licensed stuff, because I know where the scale comes from, and that I'm not as interested right now, at least, in the clubs of that sort of thing. I'm really interested in, what are we going to see when Batman and Spider-Man can duel it out in augmented reality in the garden with, a group of friends, in their school years or whatever, being able to play a game on VV, because that's the sort of thing that we're looking forward to at some point. I'm looking forward to being able to see, and we're already seeing it, comic books being done in augmented reality, where people can literally stand on their comics and they can read it as literally like it's on the floor, or more practically, if they want to do it on their phones using the e-reader, they can do that too. The product and the market is what I'm interested in the most. Having said that, I'm grateful to Tom for having Anthony on, so that they can speak about many things, blockchain, of course, but and crypto. Most of this was about crypto and blockchain, but thankfully, about 10 minutes of it was about NFTs. Tom spoke about VEVE because of course he has spoken with Tap's trades. Awesome video, would recommend watching. But with that being said, if this video was interesting and helpful to you in any way, perform a like, subscribe, appreciated. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new. Make sure to follow me on Twitter, it's in the description. I cover everything going on VEVE OMI. Well, I haven't recently, but I'll start to again. Thanks for watching, have a great day. I'll see you in the next video.